Every time you flip a light switch, a lamp blazes to life in a room that sits 60 miles from the nearest generator. The electrons inside that copper wire moved less than a millimeter to make it happen, yet the electromagnetic energy traveled the full 60 miles, racing through the field surrounding the conductor at nearly the speed of light. You believe the wire carried the electricity to you, but the wire carried almost nothing. The energy never lived inside the wire at all. It flowed through the invisible field wrapped around it, the quantity physicists now describe with the Poynting vector, which measures how energy streams through what appears to be empty space. What I am about to tell you will change the way you understand every force operating in the physical world. I have spent my life learning what nature reveals through every coil, every arc of artificial lightning, every one of the 300 patents I filed across 26 countries. Energy does not travel inside objects. It travels through the space between them, moving as a disturbance, a tremor, a wave. Until you grasp this in the marrow of your thinking, you understand nothing about the forces that actually govern civilization. Consider what happens when you speak to another person across a room. Your voice reaches them, but no material thing crosses that distance. Your vocal cords set the air into vibration, creating a longitudinal wave of compression and expansion that propagates outward as molecule pushes against molecule. When that wave reaches the ear, it converts into mechanical motion and then into sensation. The air molecules near your lips never travel to your listener because they merely rock back and forth in place. What actually travels is the pattern, and what the pattern carries is the energy. This is the great secret hiding in plain sight. When you watch ocean waves roll toward shore, the water itself does not journey from the horizon to the beach. The wave passes through the water, but the water does not go with it. The medium oscillates while the energy propagates, and these are two fundamentally different phenomena that people have confused for centuries. Michael Faraday sensed this when he discovered electromagnetic induction in 1831, showing that a changing magnetic field could drive a current through a wire without any material connection between the magnet and the conductor. Something invisible was mediating the transfer, something that behaved like a field and moved like a wave, and everything I built in my career began with that revelation. Absolute clarity came to me through my work with alternating current. When I was a young man walking through the city park in Budapest in 1882, I was reciting poetry from Goethe's Faust, the passage where the spirit of nature speaks. And that is when the idea of the rotating magnetic field struck me with the force of a thunderbolt. I saw it completely and all at once, a field that turned not because anything physically rotated, but because alternating currents arranged properly in space and time created a wave of magnetism sweeping around in a circle. The field rotated while the current oscillated, and nothing material spun at all. I drew the diagrams in the sand with a stick right there in the park as my companion watched in confusion, and I knew in that moment that I had grasped something fundamental about how nature moves energy. This is the principle behind every alternating current motor on Earth today, the polyphase induction motor, and at its deepest level it demonstrates that energy moves as a wave rather than as an object. What followed was what the newspapers came to call the War of the Currents, a battle between two visions of electrical power. My alternating current system, backed by George Westinghouse and the Westinghouse Electric Company, stood against the direct current system championed by Thomas Edison. This was not merely a commercial rivalry, because it was a philosophical argument about the nature of energy itself. Edison's direct current system pushes electrons in one direction like water through a pipe, and you end up thinking of energy as something the electrons carry with them, the way a freight train carries cargo. That picture is deeply misleading. Even in a direct current wire, the electrons themselves move at mere fractions of an inch per second, which means a snail outpaces them. The electrical energy, on the other hand, arrives almost instantaneously, and the reason is that the energy does not reside inside the electrons. It lives in the electromagnetic field surrounding the wire, flowing through the space around the conductor in the pattern described by the Poynting vector. Electrons are merely the medium through which the wave passes, the same way ocean water serves as the medium for a surface wave. They jostle their neighbors. The electromagnetic disturbance races forward, and the individual carriers barely move at all. When my polyphase alternating current system was chosen to harness the power of Niagara Falls in 1895, the the first large-scale alternating current power station in history, built by the Westinghouse Electric Company, it marked a victory not for one inventor over another, but for the wave nature of energy itself. Alternating current does not push charge from the generator to your lamp. The current flows back and forth at 60 cycles per second in America, 50 in Europe, and not a single electron makes the journey from the power station to your home. The energy travels as an electromagnetic wave, guided along the wire, but not contained within it. The wire serves as a waveguide, and the energy resides in the field. Once I understood this, everything else followed. Let me make this concrete, because I want you to feel it in your bones rather than merely understand it with your intellect. In my laboratory on Houston Street in New York, I once attached a small mechanical oscillator to a steel beam, a device weighing no more than a few pounds. I tuned its vibration to the resonant frequency of the building's structure, and within minutes the entire building began to tremble. Walls shook, plaster cracked, and neighbors poured into the street in alarm while someone called the police. I had to smash the device with a sledgehammer to stop it. A tiny machine no larger than a pocket watch, delivering energy as a wave at precisely the right frequency, shook a structure weighing thousands of tons to its foundations. No great force was applied, and no immense push was delivered. Only a small oscillation repeated at the natural frequency of the system, accumulating with each cycle until the building could not absorb any more. That is the power of wave-based energy transfer, and that is resonance. Think about what happened there. The energy did not arrive all at once as a single blow. It arrived as a wave, a pattern of vibration passing through the steel frame of the building from one structural member to the next. Each individual pulse was tiny, but because each one arrived in phase with the structure's natural oscillation, the amplitude grew and grew until it became destructive. This is the same principle that brought down the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in 1940, a structure destroyed not by brute force, but by wind-driven oscillations that matched its resonant frequency. A wave tore that bridge apart, not an object. Light itself, the very thing by which you see and by which all information from the stars reaches your eyes, is a wave. Not a wave traveling through some material medium, but a self-sustaining oscillation of electric and magnetic fields. James Clerk Maxwell demonstrated this mathematically in his 1865 treatise, and Heinrich Hertz confirmed it experimentally in 1887 by generating and detecting electromagnetic waves across his laboratory in Karlsruhe. I devoted years of my life to mastering the practical application of their work. An oscillating electric field gives rise to a magnetic field, and that oscillating magnetic field gives rise to an electric field in return. And this process continues in a leapfrogging chain through space at 300 million meters per second, which is the speed of light. No substance carries it, and no particle transports it. The fields themselves propagate as a wave, and energy crosses the entire universe this way, traveling from the surface of a star to the surface of your eye across 93 million miles of void without any material vehicle whatsoever. I produced evidence of this in my own laboratory before Wilhelm Röntgen published his famous discovery. Using high-frequency discharges from vacuum tubes, I created images revealing the bones inside a living hand, images of what the world would soon call X-rays. The same wave principle applied at a different frequency and a different penetration depth, but the fundamental nature remained identical. I photographed the internal structure of objects using invisible electromagnetic radiation, radiation that passes through flesh the way visible light passes through glass. The frequency was higher, the wavelength shorter, and the mechanism was exactly the same. A wave of energy propagating through space and carrying information and force, without any material making the journey. My ever larger machines were built to harness this principle directly. In my laboratory in Colorado Springs, in 1899, I constructed the largest resonating coil ever built, a massive Tesla coil with a secondary winding 51 feet in diameter. Enormous currents driven through it at carefully tuned frequencies produced artificial lightning bolts exceeding 100 feet in length, and the thunder could be heard in the town of Cripple Creek, 15 miles away. But the true purpose of that work was never spectacle. I was studying how electromagnetic waves propagate through the body of the Earth and through the atmosphere, and what I discovered changed everything I believed about our planet. The Earth itself could be set into electrical vibration, behaving as a resonant body, much like a bell that rings at a characteristic frequency when struck. It rang at approximately 8 cycles per second, which scientists now call the Schumann resonance, the natural electromagnetic heartbeat of the planet sustained by the cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, the Kennelly heaviside layer, that upper conducting region of the atmosphere. I could inject energy into the Earth at one point, and that energy would radiate outward as a wave, and at certain distances where the waves constructively interfered, it could be recovered with extraordinary efficiency. The Earth was not transporting material, it was conducting a wave. Resonance is inseparable from the wave nature of energy. When you push a child on a swing, you do not push constantly, but instead push at the right moment, matching the natural frequency of the swing, and with each small push the amplitude grows. A tuning fork will cause another tuning fork of the same pitch to vibrate across a room, while tuning forks of different pitches remain silent and unmoved. A soprano can shatter a crystal glass by sustaining a note that matches its resonant frequency, because the glass absorbs wave energy faster than it can dissipate it, and the amplitude builds until the material fails. In every one of these cases, the mechanism is the same. Energy couples most efficiently between systems when it moves as a wave at a matching frequency, and this is the fundamental mechanism by which all wireless energy transfer operates. My lifelong pursuit of wireless power transmission, which I advanced with the construction of the Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, designed with the architect Stanford White, rested entirely upon this understanding. I did not propose to fling objects through the air carrying energy the way one might throw a ball. What I proposed was to set up standing electromagnetic waves in the Earth and in the resonant cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, and to have receivers tuned to resonate with those waves, drawing energy from them as naturally as a radio receiver draws a signal from a broadcast. The energy would exist everywhere, propagating as a wave through the medium, and any properly tuned instrument could extract it. This is not fantasy, but the direct, logical, inescapable consequence of the wave nature of energy applied at planetary scale. Let me say that again, because most people pass over it without grasping the enormity. Energy does not need to be carried. It needs to be propagated. A wave does not carry the medium with it, but instead carries energy through the medium. When conditions of resonance are met, when the frequency of the source matches the natural frequency of the receiver, the transfer becomes extraordinarily efficient. Every radio you have ever listened to operates on this principle. Every wireless telegraph message Guglielmo Marconi sent across the Atlantic relied on it. Every transmission of light from the sun to the Earth follows the same pattern of oscillation, propagation, resonance, and absorption, always waves, never objects. Consider your own body and the warmth you feel from a fire across the room. That warmth does not necessarily reach you through hot air, because you can feel radiant heat even across the vacuum of space. It reaches you as infrared radiation, an electromagnetic wave identical in nature to visible light, but operating at a lower frequency and a longer wavelength. The fire sets electric charges in its material into violent oscillation. Those oscillations produce electromagnetic waves, and those waves travel across the intervening space at the speed of light before being absorbed by the molecules of your skin, which begin to vibrate more rapidly. You perceive warmth, yet no particle of the fire touched you, and no atom made the journey. A wave of energy reached you, and your body received it. And here is the part that, once grasped, restructures your entire picture of reality. What we call solid matter is itself a manifestation of wave phenomena. The atoms composing every object are not tiny billiard balls arranged in rigid rows, but active systems of standing waves, with electrons bound in orbital configurations, vibrating and oscillating, and perpetually exchanging energy through the emission and absorption of electromagnetic radiation at specific frequencies. Solid matter feels solid not because it consists of solid things, but because the electromagnetic forces between atoms, which are themselves wave interactions, resist compression with tremendous vigor. When you press your hand against a table, what pushes back is the electromagnetic field. A wave pushes against a wave, and even the feeling of solidity is, at the deepest level, a wave phenomenon. I understood early in my career that the universe is fundamentally a system of vibrations. If you wish to find the secrets of the universe, Think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Everything that exists vibrates at some characteristic frequency. Low-frequency vibrations in air give us sound, and higher frequencies in the electromagnetic field give us radiant heat in the infrared range. Higher still comes the narrow band of visible light to which the human eye happens to be sensitive, then ultraviolet, then X-rays of the kind I explored in my own laboratory, and finally the penetrating gamma rays that pass through matter as if it were not there. All of it forms one continuous electromagnetic spectrum, differing only in frequency and wavelength, unified by a single principle. In every case, without exception, the energy moves as a wave. The medium may vary, with air serving for sound, the electromagnetic field for light, and the solid earth for seismic vibrations, but the mechanism stays universal. Oscillation propagates, energy flows, and the medium stays behind. Once you truly internalize this, the world transforms before your eyes. Every time you turn on an electric light, you receive energy that has traveled as a guided electromagnetic wave along wires from a distant generator, a generator that may sit beside the falls at Niagara, where my alternating current system first proved that wave-based energy transfer could power a civilization. Every time you hear music, you decode wave patterns propagated through air, from vibrating strings or membranes. Every time you feel the sun on your face, you absorb electromagnetic waves that left a star 8 minutes earlier, crossing 93 million miles of empty space without any material vehicle. You are a receiver, and you have always been a receiver. The practical consequences are immense, and they form the foundation of your daily existence rather than residing in theory. The entire edifice of modern electrical power transmission rests on the wave nature of energy. I chose alternating current over direct current, not from personal rivalry with Edison, but from recognition that wave-based energy transfer is inherently superior for transmission over distance. An alternating current can be stepped up to enormous voltages by a transformer, which is nothing more than 2 coils of wire sharing an oscillating magnetic field, then transmitted hundreds of miles with minimal loss before being stepped back down for safe domestic use. This works because energy couples between circuits through oscillating fields, through wave phenomena, and attempting the same thing with a steady, unidirectional current proves impossible. The wave nature of energy is the reason your civilization has electricity delivered to every home, every factory, and every hospital. It is the most consequential practical fact of the modern age, and the implications extend far beyond what has already been achieved. Today, every time you place your telephone on a small charging pad and the battery begins to replenish without any wire connecting them, you witness a miniature version of what I envisioned at planetary scale with Wardenclyffe. That is resonant inductive coupling, energy transferred as an oscillating electromagnetic wave across a gap, and the principle has not changed since 1899. Only the ambition has shrunk. If energy moves as waves, it can be transmitted without wires, just as sound crosses a room without pipes and light crosses the cosmos without glass fibers. I envisioned a world where energy would be available everywhere, drawn from the vibrations of the earth itself and distributed as freely and as invisibly as sunlight. The infrastructure of the future will incorporate resonant systems tuned to the natural electromagnetic modes of our planet and its atmosphere, distributing energy to any point on the surface. The principles are not in question because the physics is settled. Energy moves in waves, and waves can be guided, focused, reflected, refracted, and received, without any material connection between source and destination. Even gravity propagates as a wave, ripples in the fabric of space-time itself, detected for the first time at the LIGO Observatory. The universe is waves all the way down. I have watched lightning split the sky over the mountains of Colorado and generated it with my own instruments, felt the air become alive with oscillation, seen sparks leap across gaps of 100 feet, and heard the thunder of artificial storms rattling windows for miles around. In 1893, at the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, I passed alternating current through my own body to illuminate lamps I held in my bare hands, demonstrating before thousands of astonished witnesses that the energy was not traveling through me as a deadly substance, but around me, as a field, as a wave that could be made to do useful work without destroying the conductor. That single demonstration proved everything I have told you here. Through every experiment, every observation, and every sleepless night of calculation, the lesson has been the same. The universe does not transport energy in packages sealed and delivered like parcels on a freight car. It transmits energy as vibration, as disturbance, as waves rippling through fields and media that stretch to the farthest stars. That is what energy truly is, not a substance to be carried from place to place, but a vibration to be propagated endlessly through the magnificent resonant body of the cosmos itself. The unit of magnetic flux density now bears my name, but the truth it measures is far older and far greater than any single life. It is the truth of the wave.